Hey guys, what's Kraken? I'm really sorry about that. Start again. Jenny D and Pointy have come together to dub the first week of July as Kraken Week, a play on Shark Week. I love it. They've asked D&D content creators to share ocean-themed content. And even though I'm new to the YouTube D&D scene, hopefully I'm here to stay. I thought it'd be fun to join in. Ocean themes, however, are not my favorite. Anytime I think of an ocean theme, I think of pirate ships, or I think of traveling across the vast sea, getting from one destination to another destination that's not in the sea. Players find themselves in cramped, tight spaces for combat, or struggling with half movement when they get pulled overboard because they don't have a swim speed. And there's a chance that the majority of their weapons are now doing half damage. And don't get me started on spell casting underwater. None of this sounds pleasant to me, but if I were to incorporate the ocean into my campaign, I'd want to do it in a way that I would enjoy. I've thought long and hard on how I would do it in different ways, and in which ways would actually make me excited to play in these types of campaigns. And I honestly have to tell you, I'm actually pretty excited about the ideas that I'm going to be presenting to you. So without further ado, here are 3 interesting ways to incorporate the ocean in your next campaign. 1. Make it your setting. I don't mean living on an island tied to the ocean for food and trade, dealing constantly with pirate attacks and natural disasters. I mean the ocean is where your campaign takes place. Waterworld, baby. I also do not mean a Little Mermaid campaign. This is not going to be an underwater campaign. I think it would be incredibly interesting to have a campaign setting existing on floating villages and cities already accustomed to bobbing around the world. There's no land in sight. Now, these cities, these villages could be very small, just a few archaic boats tied together to extremely well-developed booming cities that were built skyward. And these cities would be very complex. Cities would have government, they would have armies, they would have culture that were very specific just to them. The cities would still have farming available to them. They'd either be barges for farming, or it could be rooftop gardens. You could even have parts of the world that had water shallow enough that would be knee-high, that maybe aquatic plants could be farmed. The world is your oyster. No, the world can be whatever you want it to be, because this is fantasy. And perhaps aquatic races live amongst you and you've opened up trade routes with them. So now we have clay for building and fish for eating. And perhaps you have amphibious races that don't want you in their waters at all and are constantly trying to attack your trade routes or set your villages on fire. You will still have the aspect of open water, so you still have the chance to have pirates or traveling caravans. My only suggestion is that everybody gets a swim speed. That's just a part of the world that we've adapted to. And maybe some of your races have interbred with aquatic races, so you can give them some underwater breathing feats. It's up to you. It's your campaign. The key here is to have flourishing cities, flourishing cultures, really an enriched world, because we do not want a wasteland situation here. Depriving players of an enriched world will deprive them of being able to grow as characters and have choices, and that's going to be a campaign killer. The water-based world should not be a struggle for your players. It should just be something new that they get to navigate in a different kind of way of life. It should not hinder them in gameplay in any way. This to me would be incredibly interesting, and I actually would play in a campaign with this kind of setting. And that brings me to my second idea, to make the ocean your bad guy. Imagine your party lives on an island or on a coastal empire that is wholly dependent on the ocean and its gods for survival. Imagine that the city that you're from hasn't seen daylight in weeks because of this immense storm that has encompassed your entire city. The city has taken on so much water from rainstorm and rising tides that it's beginning to sink. But now, rumors are beginning to emerge about the water at night being immensely dangerous. It's taking form, it's attacking people. All people know is that in the morning they collect drowned victims. These storms, these waves, these rising tides can all be done by a handful of really interesting monsters. Well, the first is Olhydra. She is one of the evil elemental princes. Well, she is the evil elemental princess of water. Olhydra is literally a living wave. She is a 20-foot glob of water with eyeballs. I mean, in itself, that would be absolutely terrifying. But she also has really interesting regional effects that can make her extremely cool to use as a bad guy. Her regional effects include a violent downpour, a never-ending amount of rain that is surely going to cause a lot of flooding issues and rising tides, depending on how close you are to the coast. Around her lair, she also has the ability to create springs and pools that are connected dimensionally to her water plane. So it allows water plane monsters to emerge through. And I feel like that could be a really cool effect if you've placed her lair underneath a coastal city. You could use the flooding city, the rising tides, to hide these pools, these springs, so these monsters now have a direct line into cities to attack people or to grab a hold of innocent victims and drag them off to the water planes. Why I think she would be such an interesting and hard fight is that you can't escape her. She is extremely fast. She has a land speed of 50 feet, but she has a swim speed of 100 feet. And in a flooded city, she gets to swim. Not only that, you can't hide from her. She can squeeze through the smallest areas. As long as there is a 1-inch gap, she can push her body through that gap and then fill in that space. That would be horrifying, to just have a pipe or a drain in a room that she's just emerging from, this 20-foot wave with eyeballs. Yeah, she would be terrifying, but wonderful. Another fantastic ocean beast would be a Leviathan. Now, it would be the Leviathan with a water form. This gargantuan elemental has a swim speed of 120 feet. If it catches you in the water, you're not going to outswim it. And if somehow you are able to fight it on land, it has the incredible ability to create a 250 feet tall, 50 feet thick tidal wave. That's enough to knock out an entire civilization. And if that tidal wave wasn't enough to knock a coastal empire off into the sea, he's a siege monster, so all of his damage counts as double towards objects and buildings. It's not gonna be a good time. Oh, and that tidal wave, that 250 foot tall tidal wave, does 7d12 damage. He also has additional acid damage, so it's gonna be a tough fight. The last monster I want to share with you is also a gargantuan elemental. It is called an Eldar Tempest, a living storm. A living storm that's going to lightning bolt it out of you. An Eldar Tempest is a monster at the core of a storm, but that storm is miles wide. That storm is creating lightning and thunder, and it's so incredibly thick it does block out light that can affect vision. The Screaming Gale is an ability where the Tempest is able to throw out a mile-long thunderous wave. It's a mile-long, 20 feet wide thunderous wave that when it hits you, it deals damage, but it will then throw you into the air 60 feet, where you will take additional damage with every object or person that you collide with. Ouchie. And I already know what you're gonna say. Why don't we just move? You can't escape it. It has 120 foot fly speed, and on top of that, it has the same ability that our girl Olhydra has, where it's able to squeeze through the tiniest spaces. If it's got a 1-inch crack, it can squeeze its entire being through that crack. That's horrifying. I think it'd be really cool to use the idea of a living storm being called upon by an evil organization, an evil wizard that's trying to ascend to godhood. I think that all of these monsters really could be used in complex ways to create a very intricate and very one-of-a-kind story. Other classic ocean baddies that should be added to this list are going to be the sea monsters themselves. The Kraken, ancient dragon turtles, the gods, Poseidon. Can you imagine pissing Poseidon off? All of these baddies would make for an excellent end of game fight, and they stay on theme. Add these monsters to our prior list of sinking cities, natural disasters, dutiful cultists, and you're gonna have an extremely fun campaign. The very last thing on our list of incorporating the ocean into our campaign in very interesting ways is probably the funnest one, and that is simply a monster campaign. Who doesn't love a monster campaign? If you've never played a monster campaign, let me tell you, they are so fun and chaotic, but fun. And sticking with our ocean theme, you're going to be amphibious or aquatic monsters. You get to play from the bad guy's point of view. And who are your bad guys? The heroes of the realm. Well, they're not your heroes. So, yeah, they're your bad guys. Now, these monster campaigns usually go one of two ways. The first being that your evil-aligned monster character will live out a murder hobo's wet dream. The second, and the more likely scenario here, is that your evil-aligned character will slowly soften and become an anti-hero, and most likely will end up becoming the hero of the realm or saving the entire world from impending doom. Both are viable. Both are super fun. It's really up to you and your party. Though in my mind, all I can see is a party of bullywogs just becoming gods. Bullywogs? Bullywogs? Wogs? Well, there you have it. 3 interesting and very different ways to add a splash of the ocean in your next campaign. I'm really interested in which ones you like and which ones you might implement in your next campaign. If you have any other interesting ideas, please drop them in the comments. I'm actually surprisingly very intrigued with this theme right now. I know I was a naysayer before, but now I can actually see tweaking some of this and using it in my current campaign. I want to thank Jenny D and Pointy Hat for letting me explore such a fun topic. And of course, I want to thank everybody who watched this video. Thank you so much, and I hope to catch you next time.